I checked out the website of our next speaker, Dave Holland, and read about an accident that changed his life forever in an interview called Hell and Beyond. It was an interview with an age journalist, and I commend it to you. There were more than a number of times when I simply could not read the article due to the shocking brutality of this workplace accident. Dave Holland survived this accident, an astonishing feat in and of itself. After the accident, Dave re-educated in occupational health and safety with a master's at RMIT and further study in social psychology at ACU. Dave volunteered at Sacred Heart Mission part-time for 15 years, spending the majority of his time with the original Mission op shop on Grey Street in St Kilda. I know it well. Dave has also been working in organisations safety cultural development, as well as delivering keynote safety presentations around the country, and we are so very glad that he is here with us today. Please make him very welcome, Dave Holland.
Wow. Yeah, now I know I'm nervous. It's lovely to see you all. I'm not special. Please understand that straight up front. I'm going to be a slightly different approach to this, so you might find I'm a little bit confrontational about the way you're thinking or what you're thinking. But above all, yell at me. Let me know what you're thinking, because I need to learn and I need to grow. I have a hell of a bad time with timing, so if somebody would just yell at me when I've got 10 minutes to go, I'd be very grateful of that. To begin with, you know, when you set up these presentations, you sit by yourself, you try and work them out, you try and come up with that perfect name that's going to grab everybody's attention. Well, I couldn't do that, ladies and gentlemen. So I went back to a process which I go through when I wake up every morning, and I set a motivation. So I thought, well, you know, what motivation am I going to set? Am I going to set a motivation to help people out there, care about our society? All these lovely terms, and I thought, what's my motivation? And I came up with this. Now, I don't know if what I'm doing here is right, so I haven't mentioned it to any of the organisers, so I'm going to go ahead. And before I go any further, let me tell you, the first 5 minutes of this presentation are very, very tough. Please note that I stand in front of you, I dance the jig, and I thank you for that capacity, because that's what PAY taxes does. It allows people like me to get out there. So with that, let me move on with this, and you'll notice my speaking will slow down as the minutes pass. What motivates me? Maybe I should turn it on. Yeah. This sits on my desk. I pulled it out of the paper a couple of years ago. I'm not even positive which paper it was. Jesse is in the army, wearing his army jumper, using army equipment. He laid down a piece of paper by his side that talked about the times he'd asked for help and been refused. He laid down his bank statement of $5 and a letter of refusal for veterinary affairs. At that moment, he passed. He passed away. It's interesting when you think about it. Grab the $31 million was put up there. Now, really, my point here to you is that how do you think we got here to talk and to stand? Because people like Jesse undertook this process. We're very quick to say he's sick, he committed suicide. But I put to you to consider what real courage is. Because in his process here, I put to you that I don't think I'm standing here without him. Okay, I grew up in a geotechnical engineering family, structural engineering. I started work when I was so high with my father, I chased him. Now, I've got to be fast here. So excuse me as I just chew through it. I'd left my father's employ. This is a drilling rig. My father built one. It cost him $300,000 just to build the rig, not the car it sat on. This one, this organisation bought for $17,000. It included the car, and they claimed it was a correct drilling rig. On this particular day, I went out to do stuff I've done before, and I got my head caught in the drilling rig. I had long hair, and in it went. Not fun. I ended up in hospital. I spent a year in hospital, coming in and out, multiple... this one always grabs people's attention. It doesn't bother me quite as much as the others. A year in hospital. At around about the 1 year mark, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. When you see this photo, this is my worst photo. You have a look at it, and you can see my eyes there. Ding, 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 they're open. Well, the reason they're open, ladies and gentlemen, because 2 hours before that, I was dead. They've loaded a direct needle to the heart, and that's what it looks like when we come back around. You've often heard about gangrene and how awful it is. Well, now you're looking at it, it doesn't smell good either. All right, got through the worst part, it's over. This is my family at the time. That's little Xenia, that's Louise. You know what I'm going to say, isn't it? I had PTSD. I don't see them anymore, Louise. Xenia, I haven't seen for 9 years. There's not a day that passes that I don't wish I could talk to her, but I don't get that opportunity. I've never been a violent man. I've never lifted my hand in violence. I was never violent. But I changed. Post-traumatic stress disorder will change us. And this is the issue today, and I thought long and hard about what it is that I want to impart in 30 minutes. Well, I've not enough time, so come and see me and ask me the questions you need. But I'm here to tell you that we call post-traumatic disorder. We call it a disorder, but what it is in actual fact is a change in thinking. It's a change in processing information in front of you, and suddenly you become well aware of the fact that it is possible to be fighting for your life at this moment in time and have to rip your own ear off and put it in your pocket, as I did, and keep moving because I was out there by myself. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how it feels, what goes on, what is an attack, and how do I know it's going on, and how do I fix it? Well, let me tell you very clearly, I'm playing with PTSD right now as I stand before you. I don't know how many of you have got friends who may be diabetics, and you'll see them eat some sugar just before they go and do something that really matters to them. So this thing called post-traumatic stress is a process in the thinking. So I chose to go this way. Now, I'm going to talk to you about how it actually works. And you have to excuse my approach, is because I generally find myself on building sites as the sun's coming up in funny little cribs, and actually on the road I've had to present before numerous times. So I tend to do things with a front line in mind, and I generally find that most people appreciate it. But for the people who've spoken before me, I thank you for that, and I'm sorry that if I don't step up to it. But we'll be talking about baseline. We're talking about what most of you would consider as a situation of being relaxed. It's, I'm in bed. I'm sleeping. It's fabulous. We consider it a safe place, right? Relaxed to sleep. When you've got post-traumatic stress, it's not a safe place. Sleep itself is horrific. Sleep itself is the place where nightmares come in, and those nightmares kick in and they start to affect us. That means when I wake in the morning, I've got a mind that's working very different to what I went to sleep with. It took a long time for me to start to go through processes in order to live with that, to work it out. Because let me tell you, it's not obvious when you get a post-traumatic attack straight up. In fact, my first post-traumatic attack occurred in the hospital. I've been told that I should have mentioned a bit more about that, but the reality is that I went through a dressing change every single day for 9 months. Now, that dressing change was to remove a staph infection that had grown over my head like a pimple. Now, they did that with a green scouring pad and a scalpel. You better believe that it hurt. In fact, for 8 days, they gave me 4 dressing changes a day. That means I dealt with 8 hours in the most extraordinary pain you can imagine. And that's about where it clicked, that something went down there. So that first attack, I can now look back on and tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that went for 6 years. We're talking a lot about the downside about post-traumatic thinking, and I think we're talking a lot about these attacks, the attack itself. We do come out the other end. Sufferers, we're plagued by nightmares. Nightmares are actually physiological. I can come true and have an erratic heart rate. In fact, for me, a full post-traumatic blown attack is a risk of death, because out there on the drilling rig that day, I died. I actually died on 3 more occasions. The reality here is I need you to understand that those things you take for granted are the things that are taken from us. One nightmare can roll into the next and can roll into the next. One of my worst nightmares ever was to watch Xenia get torn apart and experience what I experienced. I saw that nightmare a few times over, and believe me, I still can't face that one. I see myself getting torn apart, and I get to a point where I sort of accepted that mentally. So self removed my image and replaced a young child over it. Whole different ballgame. So anyway, I'm suggesting to you that we've got 5 steps. 5 steps to walk up, and it changes in our headspace. Now, this isn't. I didn't find this in any book. I can't reference it all for you, although I've read plenty of 5-step programs in the last 2 months as I've tried to prepare this. But I want you to think about yourself here, because this is not so extreme. PTSD is not so far away that it can't happen to you, because it can happen to you. So we look at that first step, and we're usually happy there. So the second step comes in for people like me, and we're talking about triggers. Do you know, here in Tasmania, there was a bad massacre, as you're all aware of it. And in my reading through this, and with my trauma counsellor, was Louise Bailey, who actually treated a lot of people from Tasmania. She was an expert, a world-considered expert. One of the major trigger points for these guys, according to the massacre, was the smell of coffee. Because I was sitting in a coffee shop when he came through and went nuts. Imagine that. You walk down the street and you smell some coffee and you drop to the ground and have a heart attack. The reality here is this is how it works. These are the triggers. So triggers are unconscious. mostly you don't see them. Nowadays I see them. When it initially comes on, we don't see those triggers. And I think that's driving a lot of the discussion about how PTSD is a terrible disorder, yada, yada, yada. So those triggers come. In the process of the trigger, there's a process in the brain. Now, I'm not a specialist in neurosurgery, so you excuse that straight up. But there's a thalamus gland that produces cortisol. That affects the level of dopamine and serotonin in the mind, which then addresses this level of adrenaline that comes through the system. That's where we are with this major amount of adrenaline that's pumping through our system and pumping through our body. It can't be good. It can't be good for us. In fact, it actually makes your life more fragile because it's almost like you're living at a higher pace. This morning when I got up, I had my first cup of coffee. I had 2 sugars in it. I had a cup of coffee just there before I came up during the break. I had 5. Weird. Why are they having so much sugar? I hid that for a long time, and then I started to realize that the level of sugar was going up in my day. Every morning, no more than 1.5 cups of sugars in my coffee. By night, it's always 4 teaspoons of sugar in my tea. The body is on overdrive. It needs the adrenaline, it needs the sugar going in. These can be things for you guys to notice as you're managing work groups. That level of sugar can actually reflect on the position that person's in. So you'll notice that I'm trying to use the stuff that we read in the textbooks at the top, and at the bottom I'm trying to give you an assessment on what I've got. But for you guys to get what you need, you're very likely going to have to come and talk to me through the day. So for me, that trigger comes in, one of the first things that happens is phantom pain. So I get phantom pain across here. Now, it's not always pain for me. It's a horrible itch that has me driving nuts on that, right? Sounds okay, doesn't it? Except I'm doing it in my sleep. In the last 3 years, I've been in for punctured eyeballs about 4 times into the eye hospital. And I'm getting used to the pain. I don't know if you've ever been into the hospital for an eye problem, but they give you an anaesthetic. There's not a drug that good in the world when they give you that anaesthetic. It lasts 15 minutes and you spend the next 15 minutes begging for the next one. Change in breathing. Well, we saw that on the video before and I loved it. I loved it. Somebody actually stopped and showed that breathing because they're the key indicators for us. It's the breathing. I sat down there and I got quite light. It was very well projected. That breathing changes. Now, at the beginning of it is very hard and coarse. Well, as we move up the scale and the attack comes worse, the breathing actually settles down and becomes really quite shallow and quiet. Impatience. Well, I like the idea. See, recently my thinking has been about what is anger. Obviously, for me, it's important. I've got to know what's going on in my mind, and I fight on. Anger nearly always comes from impatience. So this impatient aspect of who we are, there's another indicator for you to notice. Now, you don't hear words like this very often because we're actually talking about that person who's sometimes the most effervescent person in the group. But the triggers are change in breathing, anxiety. Now, by now, I've got a fear of sleep. Now, it took about 9 years before I was literally prepared to go to bed. I'd sleep on the floor, I'd sleep on the couch, and I wouldn't make deliberate choices to do that. That's the wonder of the unconscious. It does these things, and it drives you forward. Now, post-traumatic stress comes from your unconscious. It's happening in there. Right? So fear of sleep was a really big deal. How do you recover if you're frightened to go to sleep? How do you recover when the sun goes down and you start to get apprehensive about what the bloody hell's going to happen tonight? So we move up. This next word you'll have heard, you've seen it come up, heightened. Now this is the one we're all talking about. This is where we are. This is what we're thinking about, heightened. How quickly do we... You've seen the steps? I get the flashback in the sleep. So I'm basically living at heightened. That's where I am. I can try and manage it, and I can make sure that I'm a little bit easier to talk to when I'm out there, and sometimes I'm pretty bloody righteous, particularly when it comes to OHS and safety. Hyper alert, well, we've seen that word come up. What does it mean? It means I'm on edge. It means that I'm running on empty. I'm light, my mouth's clagging, and I need a drink. I won't take you all the way. Don't need to see that. These words, they came up and they're becoming key words, but they're hard to define. And when we throw up all these key words all the time, then we blockade that conversation a little bit, as you'll see as I keep moving through. Heightened. So sympathetic nervous system, it's now in control or looking for complete control. Why? It's because I'm at risk. I've got to do something to fix this risk. I'm a storyteller by nature, and I've got to move through this quickly, but I can't reject a story. My clock's running backwards. So I'm being pulled up in the city. I've been in a traffic jam for about the last 20 minutes. It's gridlock, you know the feeling, bloody hell, I'm stuffed, I'm bored, it's hot, I've got the window open, my air conditioning doesn't work in the car, so I'm noticing the heat. And I've got the phone out there next to me, this is a couple of years back, and I see it reading, and I think I shouldn't be answering the phone, I'm not allowed to do that, but I haven't moved 2 feet in the last half an hour. So, I pick up the phone, and I speak to my friend. And as I'm saying hi to my friend, I look in front of me, and there's a young police officer. He points at me, he goes, over. I go, oh, shit. Righto, I get pulled over. So he pulls over, and this guy's pretty gung-ho. He comes up and he goes, you're on the phone. I'll smash your phone for you. And this was just before the push, and I don't make a habit of picking up the phone in the car. He came up to me, he's telling me off. He's a young fella, and I'm noticing I'm being polite because I have an interest in his well-being. In a flat of a second, I see myself, I watch myself in slow motion. I can see in my rear vision mirror a car coming too close to him. I haven't even spoken, and I can watch myself and think, my hand comes out the window, I grab him by the belt and I yank him in. And he leaps back, and it took everything for him not to grab his gun. He said, what are you doing? You don't grab a policeman's gun, a gun belt. And I'm going, there's a car, you're going to get hit by a car, mate. He was furious. But what do you need to grab from this? Is I knew I was doing it, but I didn't have a lot of control. The unconscious says he's going to get hurt. We need to fix it. I see myself quite regularly crossing roads. Just recently, last week, I crossed the road in the city, there's plenty of traffic, and there's a young girl sitting next to me, and she's jumping, she's running, she's going to hit across the road before the little green man comes up. That's unacceptable, I can't have that. And I watch myself again in slow motion, grab her arm and hold her steady. Sorry, don't, you've got to wait a moment until the green light comes up. For me, I think, well, it's happening in front of me. I can't do anything. It's as though I can't get a rational mind to take control of it. It continues. This is the process here that's going on in this heightened place. So now we're heightened. I refer to it as OCD. Now, those of you in the room who know your stuff know that OCD actually incorporates a much larger sort of realm. But this obsessive thinking is quite normal for this post-traumatic response. And it happens regularly. I don't know about you guys, but every time I leave the house, I pretty much stand still at the bottom of the steps in my apartment, and then I'm ready to turn back around to check everything that I've just checked on the way out the door. Now, that's my OCD. It continues to happen, and sometimes it's an indicator to me to just how anxious I am at this moment. Now, please, that I talk to you today about this doesn't mean that I want to be labelled that I'm unemployable. I am not. And the reality here is that this conversation that I have out there around Australia sometimes labels me a bit. So please understand that I'm still fighting out there, and I don't expect to be given a dressing gown and sit tight, which I think is some of the problem in the way we treat people with this disorder. A feeling of unease. How can I express that? I think you guys know that when I'm saying that. Really heightened sensation where nothing's right. I can't sit down, I can't stand up. The very first psychologist I went to see right in the middle of this operations, I walked in and I said, mate, look, this is what I've been through. I know I've got to get some help because no normal person is going to have to actually cope through all this. And I said to him, he said, what's the problem? And I said, well, I can't sit still. Have you noticed that I haven't sat down and I've moved from 5 destinations in your office in the last 3 minutes? I can't sit. So there's this hyper-arousal going on. There's the impatience, as I said here, sometimes causes anger. I want you to understand that, yes, I have PTSD, but I'm not crazy. I'm not going to walk in and yell at you. I'm not going to start to drivel. My post-traumatic stress is impounded inside me. It affects my heart rate, and as I did on the day I died, and the worst flashback for me is to relive that space, because the mind keeps going back there, right? Hot, sweating. The sweating, wow, I never knew it had happened. They could give you a Botox in a good fashion under your arm and that will stop the sweating. Unusual. Excessive sweating. There's another indicator for you. Now, all these indicators, I'm not suggesting you go in there guns blazing and try and help it, because you won't be able to. All I want you to do is to do what I know the Australian community does and share a bit of compassion. Magnified sense of smell. This one I remember because I remember going in to see my psychiatrist and I said, mate, what's the deal in Melbourne here? There seems to be a homeless person on everywhere I go. I just sit on the tram. I have an issue with smell, right? You know, when I'm working in Sacred Heart, there's lots of people coming through and gee, they can really pong. You know, and we think, oh, that's all right, they're psychologically unsound, they can smell. Ladies and gentlemen, that's crap. If you come into my space and you stink, then it's okay for me to say, hey, listen, mate, go home and wash. I'm going to tell you, this is a reality. That having worked with these homeless people for 15 years, and I do it one day a week, and this is, those of you who have been through Melbourne know that this area in St Kilda is one of the worst. That if you're gentle and you pull these people aside and say, listen, mate, you smell. They get to know me, that's okay. The next time I see them, they don't. So let's not be scared of people with a stress problem. Let's not be scared of them at all. They're part of our community. Panic attacks. Whoa. If you've never had a panic attack before, that's because you never do. You know, panic attacks only happen to people who are psychologically injured, don't they? They don't happen to me. I don't get those. Ladies and gentlemen, you will always, every person in this room is going to experience a panic attack at some point in their life. If you're lucky enough to get to the end of your life, you'll get that panic attack as you're dying. It's not special. Look, these panic attacks, we put these words out there and we put definitions next to those words. It's called semiology. And we make mistakes. We don't move forward as a society or a community because of these mistakes. How much time have I got?
13 minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Problems with the bowel. Oh, what can I say? You know, I need to go to the toilet, I need to go now. I've spoken to many people with PTSD. I'm very fortunate that people will come up quietly after many of the workplace presentations that I do, and they'll have a conversation with me. And because of what I've been through and because of the way I look at it, they're happy to open up and speak for a change. But this idea of going to the toilet, well, wow, you've never heard of diarrhea until you really see some of this stuff. It's explosive. I don't have time. I'm out on site, I've got to go to the toilet, that's it. Better find somewhere comfortable to drop. Nobody talks about this. This is by and large part of PTSD. After going through this for about 6 years, I went to a circle group with a group of people who broke their back. I broke my back at lower lumbar 5. I shattered my skull. I stopped and locked off the right side of the occipital condyle. I clean break through C1, C2. It's called the act of God. Believe me, in that round circle day, it turned out that everybody in the room had really bad bowel problems, because when you break your back, you damage that nerve that's around about L5 that goes off into your bowel. Funny the things we don't talk about in life, isn't it? Because it would have made things a whole lot easier for me for 5 years before. No sex drive. Well, I'm being pretty honest out here. Sex drive, you know, when you get a post-traumatic attack, what's happening is the mind is starting to look after the body. It's saying, you need protection, and we've got to fight now. So if all the extremities of your body, your hands, your feet, the fact you need to go to the toilet and you want to try and hold it there, this stuff all just goes because the mind puts all the energy into your torso and your brain because you're fighting for life. Well, that's what it thinks anyway. So, you know, when you're fighting for life and you've got this one post-traumatic attack that lasted 6 years, the last thing that was going to be really forefront in your mind is having sex. Why do I point out these things? Because we know that the largest majority of people who get PTSD have a relationship breakdown, as I did. I lost Louise and Xenia, and we know that. But we don't talk about the little niceties about why. I finally discovered this was it. I sent in an application to Allianz and I said, mate, I want Viagra, please. My God, do you think that they could have attacked me anymore? Well, we don't pay for Viagra. I go, man, I just, every now and again, I'd like to have sex because my partner would probably appreciate it. Or maybe one day I'll get a partner. It's a reality. So all these things that we take for granted, and I'm not really supposed to talk about these things in public, am I? Having sex, a normal sexual life, it helps us manage our minds. It helps us manage where we're moving the next day. It gives us relaxation. It takes us back to rest, doesn't it? A funny thing, we go to bed to do that. Appetite. Yeah, I put on a lot of weight. Well, before I put on a lot of weight, I went to the gym. Japes, you're doing better than me. Went to the gym and I got in there. I was in the gym every day, actually, for about 6 months. And I got pretty big. I thought, yeah. And then one day I decided, this is bullshit, I don't want to do it anymore. I really don't enjoy the gym. And over the next month, I got very fat. I'd never seen myself with fat on that before. So the reality is that they also had me on a drug called Seroquel. Antipsychotic. They were trying anything to try and control the nightmares that are still going on now, every night for now 6, 7 years we're talking about. So there was changes in me. It's difficult to approach. Let me point out to you very clearly that I don't believe me admitting out here to all this stuff to you in front of me makes me a person with nothing to offer our community. That's not real. I do have a lot of trouble getting work. I paint houses in between, and I've got people who know me and care enough about me say, Dave, can you go and do that? It's hard to get work because our community looks at me and says, you're broken. Whether you think you do or you don't, it's going on. And that's not well with me. I can't go any further without mentioning something from the mission. This is amazing here, because here I get to meet people who are homeless, and I meet them now, having been there for more than 10 years. I know them by name. I talk to them and they'll open up with me and have a chat. And to be honest with you, it was a really important part about my recovery, to understand that the world isn't all about me, although right now it seems to be, doesn't it? It's not all about me. There's a whole lot of other people out there suffering. If I think my life's bad right now, there's a whole lot more. Think of Jesse. And right now as we speak, ladies and gentlemen, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people in this country suffering. They suggested that there was 97% of the group of people homeless had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, complex means, as it sounds, it means that it's layer upon layer. Interesting when you think that the latest research suggests there's 114,000 people in Australia sleeping rough. There's a lot of people out there that are suffering. We hear about how that death was terrible. It was against a female. I'm thinking of one in Melbourne recently. But what about the reality that to live on the street is exceedingly violent? Exceedingly violent. These guys, they're violent with each other. And they break bones. And they'll come in and they'll boot a person while they're sleeping and break bones. It's horribly dangerous, and we're not talking about it because they're homeless. You know, by the way, homeless only happens to people who've got a problem. It's not me. Let me tell you, that's ignorant. This is something they came up with. It looks very similar to what I'm sort of projecting when I talk about cognitive behavioural stuff in the workplace. Like I believe wholeheartedly in the cognitive behavioural theory. Here in Australia, it's more important. Cognitive behaviourism is really important when it comes to the way we manage risk and safety. But they came up with consider the environment, soft eye contact, open body posture, active listening, be present, building trust through transparency, display empathy, try put yourself in the client's shoes, limit interruption, paraphrase key points, preference open-ended questions. Well, I would add to that, put boundaries. It's okay, Dave, you can come and talk here, but there's no swearing. You can tell me that. There's plenty of people who do. Boundaries are okay, yeah? It's how we project it. Boundaries are okay. And let me tell you, people who are suffering from post-traumatic stress, they accept boundaries. I'm trying not to look at certain people in the room right now because I could be pulled up for this, but don't be frightened of putting across a boundary, but just don't be nasty about it. Don't be awful. Those boundaries, they're important, but it's how you deliver them. And I have trouble with this because when you finally speak up to do it, it's kind of tough. Really gentle. So now, we're in fight-flight. Yes, my friend and I spent quite a bit of time talking about this. We were on holidays, you know. This is how it works, is I'm trying to nut this thing out. How do I project to a room of people what goes on in a post-traumatic response so when I walk out of here, you don't think I'm a fruitcake? How can I make you see this thing and get you to realise that quite suddenly this is going to be accessible to each of you? Because this process called PTSD, it happens in our mind, it's our thinking. And when we fight, that cortisol gets released and we go through a process, a change in thinking, because our mind suddenly realises that the world's a whole lot more dangerous than I perceived it to be before, so I'm going to have to fight. Sympathetic nervous system's in control. Dilated pupils, trembling, heart palpitations, restlessness. There could be a whole lot more that goes on there, no doubt. Breathing changes. Just recently I had in the shop, a guy came in, he was an ex-soldier from Vietnam. You know, in Vietnam, when the guys for PTSD came back, you know the treatment, don't you? It's 50 milligrams of Valium. And in Victoria, there was a law that says if you've got 50 milligrams of Valium in your system and you play up, you go straight into the institution. Valium's got a half-life, so every day they take 50 milligrams. And within a month of these guys using their Valium, they're addicted. And the powers that be in Fitzroy, where it happened, turned around and said, listen, if you want to play up, we'll fucking throw you into Kew Cottages, which was still open at the time. So that's how they shut them up. What's going on now? Are we shutting them up now? I think sometimes we create disorders that are so big that we take away the reality of how they affect each of us. You don't have to accept everything I say, because I'm always confrontational. What I want you to do is talk about it. Have a conversation. Thank you very much. Single-minded, limited to trust. I can't trust somebody else because I'm fighting for my life. I've got to only look after myself. Extremities lose sensation, as we talked about before. Because, you know, for me, I'm in here at rest, and because of the flashbacks, I bounce straight up here. So this is why I lived in the intact for so long. Limited trust in organisational ethical systems. Well, I point out to you, ladies and gentlemen, we hear about ethics all the time. Ethics is a system. It is written by people. Now, just because it says ethics doesn't mean it's a good system of morality. So this process of being post-traumatic means I can see through things very rapidly because I think that I'm fighting for my life. And somebody says something about ethics to me, I'm gone. It's left. It's not feasible as a symbol, it's not right. Limited trust in organisations. Well, we've heard a lot about statistics today, and unfortunately we're not even close. In OH&S, they say that 50% of accidents are reported. Post-traumatic stress, it's way down on 50%. There's a lot more going on out there than what we want to think. So finally then we come on to the top. What do we call the top? I fiddled with this for ages. What on earth what am I going to say up there? So I'm going to call it a paradox. And the reason I'm going to call it a paradox is I'm going to try and debate it. You decide for yourself. And here the Buddhist in me is coming out a bit. Self, I'm talking about your rational mind. Right now, you're here with me. Self recedes back. The unconscious takes control, and the unconscious is more powerful. I mean, you know, the unconscious gets me moving, the unconscious has me breathing, the unconscious has me functioning. The unconscious does a whole lot of work here, and for those of us who suffer from post-traumatic stress, it's a large part of us. So I get to the top there. What happens? Well, the first thing that you know is that I'm at risk of stroke. I'm at risk of heart attack. That's the reality for me. Other people might get violent, or whatever the situation is. For me, I'll internalise it. So let's have a look. I spent a lot of time on this. You can reject the idea. I want to debate, right? Suicide, heart attack, stroke, self-loathing, depression. Now, we've talked a lot about depression and self-loathing and stuff as a separate part of PTSD. I don't know, I'm just a nutbag who suffers it, but, you know, depression's part of what I would call the post-traumatic file. Right? It is going on there. Now, for me, it is at any rate. Over-controlling, this is the big word, control. Because post-traumatic stress is about taking control. I'm not going to die today. Everything's going to be in its place, but you're going to listen to me. And I will keep pushing forward. 15 years ago, if you said to me, Dave, you're going to come down to Hobart and you're going to give a presentation on PTSD in front of a whole lot of peers, I'd laugh at you and say, you've got to be bloody joking. It's not for me. There's a control factor moving on. This has changed me. So I've suddenly got improved performance. You can decide for yourself. Am I a fruitcake when you left? I've got all your attention right now. I guess I don't know how good the attention cycle is, but I've got it all. Right? Socially sensitive. For me, I'm very quick to see somebody in pain. Very, very quick to see him in trouble, and I will step up now, and I will move across. Stupid, huh? I pulled up last year, just in November last year, and there was a lady, she was screaming on the side of the road, so I jammed on the brakes. I pulled out, I jumped out of the car. I'm not special. So I see this lady, she says, I can't stand up. I go, oh, are you by yourself? So I reached down to the lady, and I went over and I grabbed her. Now, I tried to lift her. This lady had a bit of weight on her. I gave myself a 6-inch hernia on the spot. How do you do that? Because the mind changes. It steps outside of itself. I've got to tell you, there was an actor who was well known for a housing group who pulled up, and he thought I was somehow mugging this woman. So on top of all this, he said 2 words to me, and the spit that I gave him was pretty severe. She's on her feet. If you want to do something, maybe you can stay here until her partner gets home. Anyway, 4 months later, I got the hernia. I had to do presentations out on building sites with towels wrapped up around my belt. This is how it works, ladies and gentlemen. That line in the attack, we're past it. I will hurt myself. I will, because this is what I've got to do. I've got to take control of the situation, move past where my body is comfortable. 1 minute, okay. Eye for detail. Defending boundaries. Now, the boundaries, I keep putting this up to you. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be frightened of boundaries. Just be gentle the way you push them forward. Because people in a post-traumatic response, they appreciate boundaries. They can move through them. Clear thought, well, you can argue that. it's up to you. But when I need help, and when I've got to help myself, it's very clear in me. I know what I'm doing, I'm going straight for it. Physical strength, well, I just showed you the physical strength. I seem to think it's bigger than it is. Now, the last word here is resilient behaviour. Now, we've heard a lot about resilience coming up today. I want to point out to you that resilience isn't a label. I don't put a label here that says I am resilient. Resilient is a behaviour. It goes on day after day. That's right, a resilient person cries. A resilient person collapses in a heap and gets back up again. It's not special. We don't want to turn on the television and see, oh, the guys, they've had another cyclone in Queensland. It's okay. These people in Tully, they're very resilient. Fuck off, enough of this. We want our words, they're out there and they matter, they mean something. I thank you very, very much for putting up with me and having me here. I would ask if you have any questions, you come and see me. Anything that I can do to help you do what you're doing out there. But with the parting gift, this little one, this only goes for 30 seconds. I just want you I wanted to remind you that this thing called post-traumatic stress isn't all bad, it's just there. No volume? No volume. Okay. The Cosmos decided to keep in on time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please have a terrific day.